email, I don't understand. Even though you know, somebody will say, you know, and I'm like, I don't know.
Are you on Facebook?
No.
Then we can't tell you. No.
I mean, I used to have one, but I think I closed it.
Ready?
I
We're
haven't
on?
used it in 3 years.
I did. I plugged it in already.
Okay.
Right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start our zoning meeting. This is a special meeting on Monday, April 29th, 2019 at 6:45 in the auditorium here. Present we have Dan Ferrero, Carl Walton, Lucas Cherry, Jennifer Roy, our staff liaison for our zoning enforcement officer, and we have Bud Noor, we have, and I am Jill Conklin. We have Bud Noor, our selectman, Jeff Ford, our town engineer, and Glenn Chalder with Planometrics. So, we are here to discuss our revised draft of the zoning regulations. We've been working on this for some time, like probably a year, right?
Since October. Our first meeting
over
was
a
in
year,
October.
over a year. And there is a draft up online that people can look at. And we're gonna start our meeting. So, Glenn?
Without further ado?
Yes.
I think, as you know, we've been working on the regulations for some time now. Back in the fall, I prepared a first draft based on my review investigation for discussion with the commission. The last several months, the commission's given feedback on those regulations, and so this draft of the regulations reflects your comments and feedback. I think the next step for us is to further refine these regulations, and I think the next major milestone for us is to have a public informational meeting where we can have a session for people to give us comments and feedback. For those people who are involved in the public participation early in the process and had wishes and desires they wanted to express, they can tell us whether or not their concerns have been addressed in the regulations and give that input to the commission. And for people who are just warming up to the regulations for the first time, to give us their thoughts and comments on the regulations.
Right.
And the regulations are always a reflection of the issues facing a community at any time and the needs and desires of the community. And so I think our goal in these regulations has always been to try to make them user-friendly, easy to find the information that you would need if you're using the regulations, and provide good guidance for the commission, for residents, and other people moving forward. So I think this second version, refined version, is an improvement over the first one. And so I think we could do a review of the regulations tonight if the commission wishes. And then I think the next major milestone for us when the commission feels ready is to go ahead and schedule a public informational meeting to get community input and feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the commission's pleasure? Do you want to go through section by section tonight? Go word by word, we can do that.
Yeah.
Syllable by syllable?
If the commission's comfortable, then you can just schedule a public information
Yeah.
meeting. So pleasure, how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, just to let everybody know here that it's not a participation meeting. We're not going to take comments from the audience, but we will be setting a public hearing, and at that time, anybody will be able to come forward and speak before we do adopt these new regulations.
And if I could just jump in, I mean, I think public hearing is often a legal proceeding involved in adoption. And
Right. This is public input.
That would not happen until adoption.
Okay.
So I think the next milestone for us is an informational meeting where we
Right.
would present and summarize the regulations to have a more casual discussion, but following that meeting, the commission might make additional changes and then schedule a public hearing on adoption. So the next meeting would be an informational meeting rather than a public hearing. So that would be the purpose of that meeting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I guess we're gonna correct that. It's gonna be a public informational meeting, and Paige Rassett has joined us. Paige? So yeah, how do you guys feel? Do you wanna go through the items you wanna talk about? I know there's a couple things that you wanted to talk about, the map discrepancy. I don't know.
I'd like to go through the village district areas a little bit too. So if we're talking about districts, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that, I had a conversation with Dan, that we wanna talk about what we're calling the different districts.
Yep.
Page 30,
Well-
where it's got, so if we talk about village districts, we talk about residential and then rural residential agriculture.
Yep.
I think that, Dan, do you have a concern about renaming them? Or
Right,
something
I had
like
that concern about renaming them from A and A1 to what you're calling them. I think it would cause a lot of, complications, and that's been from day one of our, rules and regulations, and everybody knows what they're about. By changing it, I think it would put a mix in it, you know?
Sure.
if you've added it, you know, I guess would be the explanation of the purpose of saying rural residential, like with the A1 rural residential, is that necessary or not?
Well, it's in there.
So with the introduction of the village residential, and again, the reason for establishing the village residential is that on the map, which is behind you, which hopefully the audience can see, there's some orange areas in Somers and Somersville. These are areas where the existing lots in that area are smaller than the minimum lot size today, and they are non-conforming.
Right.
So as a result, the setbacks really create challenges and difficulties, so we suggested the possibility of rezoning these areas to a village designation, which is a smaller lot size and smaller setbacks. Nobody could subdivide their property, create more lots, but they get some relief on setbacks. So when we created the village name, the village residential, we needed something else to differentiate that. That's where we came up with the rural residential agricultural, the residential agricultural district. So I made that call, but I understand Dan's point that if we've got this history, then let's continue that history, and I'll go through and make that change in the regulations. So we'll introduce the village residential, and the other two will be residential A and residential A1.
I'd like to say one more thing about the, village residential.
Yep.
I know you have it, it outlines it in the back of what it actually is, but, I know there's gonna be a lot of questions. Is that the complete, or would it apply to, controlling the paint of it, the colors? and-
No.
It's that part in the back is complete of what it entails.
That's probably, no, I think there's a little clarification that's needed. Under Connecticut state law, there's a special type of zoning district called a village district.
Mm-hmm.
And the village district, when identified in a plan of conservation and development, for its particular characteristics, gives the commission the ability to have more control over aesthetics. So village districts have been established in the business districts in Somers and Somersville. They give the commission control over the architecture and design of new commercial buildings, but the residential districts are not. They're not designated as village districts under
Right.
Connecticut law. So in fact, what may make sense to do is get the word village out of that name, because the confusion that
Yeah, it
It's
alludes to
not-
all the homes that are in Main Street, you
and
know.
that's not our
No.
intention with.
Exactly.
Correct.
So we wanna make that clear.
Yep, so I will search for another name for village residential and let's put your thinking caps on and come up with something.
So we don't want it to be village?
Well, no, because they're in the villages of Somers and Somersville, it just seemed natural to call them village residential. But when the state legislature called this other thing the village district, the use of that phrase now creates confusion. It was never the intention in the craft of the regulations to give the commission aesthetic control over residential uses
Right.
in any of these areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nor was
So,
it our
It
request.
just, again, the use of the word village is just not right there, so we'll find another word.
But do you want that for commercial, and I thought you wanted aesthetic control.
Aesthetics, yes, but not over the residential
residential.
part.
Yeah.
Correct. So we kept it in Somers and Somersville Center, but if you're a residential use in a business zone there, you're exempt, it doesn't apply.
Yeah, and I just have, I guess, a couple clarifications. What you were saying, I'm a zoning member and I was confused. I thought our original intent was to try to, make this uniform, easy to understand for all the residential, citizens of Somers. It looked like we have 3 based upon this map. actually more, but, you know, I'm just looking at strictly residential, rural, and village. Were we originally not discussing making everything A1 or a village district? So it could be, you know, a little more user-friendly? Or what's changed there?
Well, I mean, working on the regulations, I looked at the village situation and the non-conforming lots. That's really the only area in town where we have these clusters and concentration. So I'm the one who recommended for your consideration that the village residential district be created. Historically, the differentiation between the other two districts has been essentially use-related. And there were some prohibitions, such as home occupations. You couldn't have a home office. And it's the A or the A1?
A.
Thank you. And it just seems that in this day and age, there are many people who work out of their houses. And so neighbors tattle on neighbors. You have a zoning violation and it creates challenges. So I suggested for the commission's consideration that those zones could be combined. But I think
To make it
the commission said,
one
you know,
single.
as Dan says, we've got this history of using these districts. People understand what they are and use them, so let's keep those zones intact.
So,
That's why today we have Surrey.
which
Two
seems more
existing-
complement, you know,
It's
a
not
little more.
though, Lucas.
Well, I guess I'm just easily confused. If I understand correctly, if we had one A1 zone, which based upon this map, if I understand it, would be the yellow? No, I'm sorry, the white. I have it highlighted.
The white.
So I would say the majority of the town is A1. I feel that's fairly
And was,
correct, you know,
since,
possible, but it looks like we're making this more confusing versus trying to go with a A1 and then a village district, which I perceive to be the downtown Summers and the downtown Summersville area.
So how is that confusing? You just described exactly what it is we're doing.
Well, no, because right now, you're recommending or suggesting 3 different areas.
We've got 2 today.
Yeah, the existing regulations, correct.
Exactly.
what,
And so the village residential areas are where all of the lots are non-conforming. If
Yeah.
you wanna put an addition on your house in those areas, it's quite possible that you'll be non-conforming as to yard setbacks and have to go get variances, which involves public notice to your neighbors, and public hearings, and variances which get filed in the land records. Because we don't recognize the fact that we have this concentration of smaller lots in these areas that have been there for hundreds of years. So the commission does not have to do the village residential district. You can say to me, Glenn, this is something we've never done before, take it out. I'm happy to take it out for you. I've recommended it for your consideration because what it does is for the homeowners, it gives each of them a little bit of relief on some of these standards. They may still have to go get a variance, but they won't be non-conforming or have to get special legal opinions when they sell property and their lot's non-conforming, or you go to try to get a zoning permit to put an addition on, and the issue is, I'm sorry, you can't, you have to go to the ZBA now, which could take weeks or months.
So if we did away with the word village, you're saying that's what we wanna do, but
I think if that causes confusion.
well, we already have the business overlay districts in Somersville and Summers, and the village.
No, my next thought is, so, but your thought, when you first said village residential, you were thinking because they were non-conforming lots, could we just name it residential A2 or something
Sure.
like that? But
And that
keep-
still makes
B,
3.
Residential
Well,
A.
yeah, why couldn't we have an A1, which right now, A1 is the majority, and then what we're calling village, or the orange areas, would be A2. And it seems, again, A and B, why A, B, C?
Well,
Why does some rules apply to you but not apply to me?
I think, if I may, jump in, I mean, I think the A designation makes sense because both districts, A and A1, have the same minimal lot size, and so the, very similar, dimensional standards. The other zone, which I'm now starting to warm up to the concept of just call it residential B, right? Is a different lot size and different standards. So the uses are the same, but the dimensions are different. So if somebody calls up,
Two meetings we
it would actually be, A and A1's a little confusing, because I have a hard time keeping straight. I mean, again, I don't live in Summers, so
Correct.
exactly which one is which, it's easier for me if they're A, B, and C, I get it. But you get it, and that's the most important part. So I think, it makes sense, I think, to go to AA1 and residential B.
Well, it's not about just the board understanding. I assume we're doing this for the town, what's best for the town, the entire group of residents. And if I look at the chart that, was provided a couple meetings ago, Zone A, as you had mentioned, seems to have, you know, the same lot size, same frontage, the list goes down, but when you get, farther down to like certain uses, you know, it seems like there's almost 10 to 12 different uses that are allowed in A1 that are not allowed in A. And why could we not just make everything A1? Because if everything was A1, we still have control through a special use permit for any applicant. No, I'm just curious
Well,
what
we
happened.
we had
thing
at length
about-
discussions about this for the two meetings that you
Yeah.
weren't here for.
So,
What, two
well,
me-
well, the thing about the A in the A1 zone, there was,
Yep.
there was one thing left off, and I know it was left off because there's current statute that says you can't regulate the size of a house, correct, Glenn? Is that correct?
It's not a statute, no.
Okay,
The
current
the
court
case law.
cases, so there's history there. So if somebody was to go and say, I don't wanna build a 2,000 square foot house in an A zone, and they went to court, they would probably win. That's what you're telling me, right, Glenn?
Yeah, I think it's, Connecticut Supreme Court has said it's very difficult for a community to defend a minimum floor area requirement.
Okay, so the difference also
So
between the
that's
A, no, between the A, I just wanna go one step further.
Mhm.
Our A zone currently, you have to have, a total square footage of 2,000 square feet. If it's a single floor, it has to be 15. If, you know, if
So a
it's
single floor is 15.
right. If it's in the A1 zone, you have to have a total of 1,200 square feet. And if it's a two-story, an 11, what is it? 1,500
For an A1,
for an A1.
so 500
And your
square feet
your first floor has to be 850 square feet versus in an A zone, it has to be 1,200 square feet. So there was some sizes of the houses, bigger houses in the A zone.
Okay, but does that not seem exclusive and sort of, unfair to one, you know, if you're in A1 versus A?
You
I
know,
would
I
think-
see this in all towns,
How's it-
you know, Enfield, you know, 4,400 square feet. I mean, all
Well-
all towns have these different zones, we're not any different.
Well, if all towns decided, and I'll use this as a, what I tell my children, if everybody decides to jump off a bridge, are we gonna do it? Or if everybody
Well-
decides
Well,
to
we-
start
we
increasing
evidently-
taxes by 25%, are we
We
gonna do it?
evidently jumped off the bridge in 1966.
Was it 1966 when the A zone came in?
In 1966 is the earliest
Okay.
reference I can find to it.
It's common for municipality zoning to
I wanted to know that.
have different, different zones for different lot sizes and different uses. Some towns, like Vernon has, you have called like the R20,
Yeah.
R40, R60, and so if you're in the R60, well, you have to have 60,000 square feet to build.
Okay,
So it's common
Yeah.
in towns to divide it, you know, and then it keeps the character of a neighborhood for,
is it not possible to, I guess, just because other towns are doing it, would it not be, important to, I guess, again, I'm not concerned about other towns, I'm
well, I don't
looking
mean
at
because
Summers.
every town,
Yeah.
it's
Well, that's
common,
what-
it's common zoning,
Hmm.
it's across the United States.
It's not unique.
But I thought you had recommended going with one residential zone, going back, you know, this has been a year, but from my memory, at one point, you'd recommend, why don't we make everything A1 zone?
The
Yeah.
first draft of the regulations
Okay.
had the A and the A1 merged into one district,
Okay,
and I proposed what we're now gonna be calling Residence B, or Residential B. And the commission, as part of our review of the first draft, said, we've had A and A1 for
It's 1966,
Six
is
years.
the best we can figure
Yeah.
out.
We'd like to keep the B and the B1, so that's why this draft, the A and the A1.
Mm-hmm, I know.
That's why you should do A through
Thank you.
D.
I'm Canadian, I can't keep my letters straight. So I think that's where the draft of the regulations is right now in terms of its proposal.
yeah. I guess laws have changed, regulations have changed as a country, as a town, as cities from 1966. If I remember correctly, somebody mentioning, if we change to simplify this, to make everything what you had originally recommended as A1, you know, as our consultant, would that not, again, from your your opinion as a legal or a
So
professional.
let's slow down for a second. I mean, I think every town has to get a set of regulations that work for it.
Okay,
Summers is different than Enfield, Summers is
Correct.
different than Stafford, Summers is different than Wellington, than East Windsor. Every community decides. Zoning regulations are an understanding between all of us as residents of the community, the rules that we agree to live by.
yeah,
So in terms of lot sizes, setbacks, and floor areas, this is about our town and what we want in our community.
okay,
So the commission can go ahead and make those kinds of choices under some general parameters which are set up by the legislature and by case law.
Mhm.
In the case of minimum floor area, the Supreme Court said there's no rational public health, safety, and welfare basis for these standards. Therefore, I wouldn't say they call them unconstitutional, but they're not correct. So my job, I believe, is to advise you that if you have minimum floor area standards in your regulations, as you do in your current regulations, if challenged, you will not prevail.
okay.
Glenn, so,
So let me just finish
Yeah.
up for a second. So I made the recommendation to the commission, I think you might be well advised to take those out. If people are not gonna be spending $100,000 or more, $200,000 for a lot in Summers, to build a smaller house than that. Or the next person will come along and make that house a bigger house because it doesn't meet their needs. So I don't think you need these standards.
Okay.
And so I feel like I've done my job to express to you how you could approach this.
Okay.
And if you say to me, as Dan just did, the names are important for people.
Yep.
Don't change the names. Gotcha.
mm,
And if you say to me as the commission, we've had these standards since 1966, we'd like to keep those standards. I'm happy to put those back in for you. I've given you my advice in terms of what could happen if you're challenged, but these are your regs. I'm trying to help you get a set of regs that work well for Summers.
I guess,
And you should feel comfortable making choices which are different than what other towns have done,
Mhm.
Okay.
provided they're right for you.
yep, I guess
And they're not.
based upon the first draft, and from my memory, this board was kind of, our original intent was to simplify it, ensure that, you know, all regulations were easy to understand. My memory that we were kind of going in that direction, as Carl said, they discussed something, because the first draft was that way, what's occurred that made us go back to, well, let's separate them and keep them. I remember one meeting, I had to leave 5 or 10 minutes early. I remember we was, you know, as a brief discussion it was one of our shorter meetings. And then, you know, I didn't know that we had decided as a group to go against the original, you know, draft.
We
we
haven't
it
gone
wasn't even
against any
drafted.
original draft.
we were still
First
talking
revision.
about it, we were still
Yep.
talking about it. We asked Jen to print up this
Yep,
form, which
yep.
shows the different it's basically uses, and I know I keep saying square feet, gross living area, which, I mean, can you still keep that in there as a guideline? I mean, I know
Sounds like
I know
no.
it's everywhere, but you're
Regulations.
saying you have to
Yeah.
take it all out? So somebody
No,
could
no,
go
no.
and build a 600, you know, a 200 square foot
I feel it's my
house,
job as your advisor
Yeah.
to steer you as best I can.
and you have.
And I think my advice for you here is that Connecticut Supreme Court, I think since 1985, has dictated that this is not proper and appropriate use of zoning to do this. So if you go to court, you're probably
To
not gonna win.
No,
to designate square footage
Correct.
of a
But I
building.
wanna go
But
one.
if you say, Glenn, thank you for your advice, we'd like to do that.
I don't think we're
You
disputing that.
know the exposure, knock yourselves out.
Okay, so I wanna go one step further than that. I wanna go the step to a builder, okay? A builder buys a tract of land, is gonna build 10 houses, and they're gonna put covenants on it. So they can say, these houses have to be 2,000 square feet,
Not a problem.
2 acres, 3
Right.
acres, right? It's all builder imposed covenants, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Because
so you can, I'm just,
That's a civil matter, so.
but that's,
Right.
but that's something, you know, somebody's buying, that's a builder, this is his
Right,
project.
right.
Would that-
We're using, state law, if you will, to impose standards on people for public health, safety, and welfare.
Mhm.
And the Supreme Court has said, hang on a sec, that doesn't have a rational relationship. A builder can say, I think your houses should all be white, you all need shutters, and you all need cupolas. That's a transaction between the builder and the purchaser.
But isn't,
It's not the town, and so they can do that.
Right.
And if
Right.
it's successful, great, and if it's not,
but if you don't want it, don't buy it, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Different
there
thing.
is ways to get, you know, bigger houses,
Right.
subdivisions, that in the town still, and you're saying,
You can't put it in here, it's not.
No, I know that,
No,
I
it's
know
up
that,
to-
I was
it's up
just
to the
taking
developer
it,
then.
but you know what, I was just taking it another step further, so people don't think you're gonna have a 200 square foot house next to a house. You could,
Right.
But it's
You-
not likely
but
because
it's-
whoever builds it
I mean, the
isn't gonna
cost of
instruct
the, I
it.
mean, but somebody, a builder could still do a subdivision very nicely with large homes or whatever, and
The
covenant.
economics are different today than they were in
Right.
1976.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, so that, I'm just telling Lucas that this was part of our difference too, that wasn't on here, because we had already talked about gross living area and we took it off.
But it's not on there because we're not including it going
Right,
forward.
we're not including it, but I put it here just to refresh myself of the difference.
So this
And
one
also-
shows the difference of if going forward, we keep the two separate zones.
Okay,
This shows the difference of where it stands now and where it will stand
if
going
approved.
forward.
Yeah.
Correct.
So in A zone, there's 19 different,
Things, uses that
th-
are not allowed.
that are allowed in A1. And I guess I'm wondering if everything is A1, because just in A1, we can use a special use permit to, restrict or address any concerns by, an applicant or the public, that they may have. Recently down on, Main Street, I think we have a, conservatory that was recently approved and people had concerns. So I guess I'm wondering, I know you mentioned the square footage, but why have these two different zones where one seems to be, more restrictive, where the other one's less restrictive?
Because this is a policy choice for the commission to make.
We're not creating those though.
Well, I know we can change, that's part of it, trying to make this more, uniform. And I guess that's my point, if it was uniform, it would be A1. Why do we have two separate?
Uniformity was not
Mm.
dictate, if you will, that otherwise we'd have one zone for all of Summers, and in fact, we wouldn't
Well-
have any standards at all.
Well, easy to understand for
Well-
a resident that's not on the commission.
Well, there's gonna be distinctions between the zoning districts, and that's
Correct.
what we're looking at here. Some areas are business, some are industrial, some are
Yeah.
residential.
But what you just mentioned is easy, business, industrial, residential,
Residential,
ABC. But it looks like we're gonna have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Because some areas are business.
And
Yeah.
industrial we already
Residential.
have, and business we
correct.
already have, so those aren't added, those
So
are
within
already
that
there.
construct, we're gonna try to make the regulations as user-friendly as we can, so that the way most people use a set of regulations is they look at the map and say, what zone am I in?
Mhm.
What can I
What
do?
can I-
And then they're gonna go to the zone and say, look, and here we have a table that says, okay, these are the uses, and this is the type of approval I need.
And one of the biggest issues we had with the regulations was, without a legal opinion in some cases, you couldn't figure out what you could do in yours because they were all over the place. There was no one place that said, here's what you can do in an A1,
Mhm.
here's what you can do in an A, here's what you can do in a business zone.
Like when we say more user friendly, if you
It
look
was-
at the existing regulations,
It's a
you have to
nightmare.
flip over to this section and
Right.
then that section.
And
It's
then
more
you-
where we
friendly
have
if you took
So-
something and put it in, so it's also being in a more orderly fashion.
Yeah.
So when you're going through it, so it wasn't just strictly, when we say make it more user friendly, it wasn't just strictly like to rename or do anything, I think.
Yeah.
And I think when we originally looked about a year ago, at first glance, everyone's like, well, there's an A and A1, well, what's the difference, let's combine it, and it was not until we started digging into what the
What
differences
they
were.
were,
Yeah.
But-
Well, that's
Why
why
they
we're-
were.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
The commission reacted and said.
Yeah, because
Right.
Glenn looked at these
But you
things,
could-
all the same,
Right.
lot size, setback, all
Yeah.
those things, and it said, well, there's really no difference other than the gross living area, which probably not gonna be able to regulate.
Well, and the
Well,
use.
19
We
other-
can't regulate.
19
Right.
other
So just
uses.
use-
Yeah,
That's
19
what
other
I'm talking about.
uses, but you know, it's,
90% of it,
but-
of the 20, 19 out of 20.
But that's what
Yeah.
we could stick in areas and
Yeah.
uses too.
Well,
that's why Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. I mean, you're looking, you wanna be here, you wanna be there.
31
Well,
distinctions.
I don't know, we don't have
Yeah.
31 zones, but I'm just
No,
saying,
no
you have
if
some,
somebody in zone A1, wireless transmitting and receiving,
Yep,
they would come before the board and request a special use.
no,
Actually, it's meaningless because the state siting council has complete jurisdiction.
right,
The
we don't,
only- The only way the local zoning comes into play is if we have a municipal tower, which is a whole different animal.
and we do have one.
Well, I guess I'm looking at this,
Would-
that was provided by
yep,
yourself or you, so I'm going based upon this information. So let me choose, private and public schools, any of them. In A1, somebody would ask for a special use permit, correct? And that could either be approved or not approved. And is my assumption correct? Okay.
Yep.
In Zone A,
It's not allowed.
it's not even allowed to be considered.
No?
And I guess that's where I'm having confusion. Why not have everything under A1? Well, you keep looking, and I'm going, I think A1 would be great. I don't know.
Talk to your fellow commissioners and come to consensus. I'm happy to craft the regulation, and I think the last consensus I had from the board was we've had A and A1 for 50-something years. We'd like to continue the A and A1. That's what we have in the regulations.
Well, again, is that when I left early, or?
Last meeting, I think it was about last
And you weren't here.
Okay. Well, the last
Yeah.
meeting in March?
Couple meetings.
Yeah, we
The last
talked
couple
about it.
meetings you weren't here for, you were here for
Okay,
part
so
of a
when I-
regular zoning meeting, but not the meetings where we discussed this. There were 2 in a row.
Yeah, so the March meeting, where I left 5-10 minutes early, the decision had not been, in the decision, or,
Well-
we haven't directed you to keep them separate or
The
combined,
special
right?
meeting we had in March,
We
or
had
the,
it-
or the regular meeting we had
honestly,
in March?
There were-
It was
You
a
know,
special meeting,
Special meeting.
No, we had a regular
and
meeting
the
too, though.
discussion was being held, and then you left, and then I think Glenn was trying to move on to the next section. He says, can I get a consensus? And because some of the commission members had expressed their thoughts, or, what people that they know, or,
I mean, it came down
Shared
to a discussion of covenants and what happens to
Mhm.
those, how much
Mhm.
turmoil do we create on the level of, people suing each other for, no, you can't take your 3-acre lot and subdivide it because it's not allowed.
Well, covenants, we have no authority,
You're
nothing
right,
to
we
do
don't.
with,
No.
right?
Should we put ourselves in a position where we put all those covenants into play and cause conflict? We probably shouldn't do that either.
But why, wait a minute, so we're gonna allow private,
They already exist. We're not allowing them.
well, there were
They
things
already
many years
exist.
ago that existed that have changed for the better. I mean, especially 1966.
We can't change the covenants. They're
No,
attached
we're not trying to
people's
change the
deeds.
covenants, we can change the zoning regulations, or make a recommendation. For Carl, am I correct, we can change it?
It's not for me.
No, you just said we
Well,
can't. I'm
I
just
said
working-
we-
we're working
we-
as a
we-
committee
We talked
to-
about not putting all the covenants into conflict by changing that zone.
Mhm.
That zone is where most of the covenants exist.
Mhm.
But I guess, so we're making a decision without having, how do you know there's gonna be these lawsuits unless we have somebody to confirm? I mean,
What-
Well, we don't know. But you can, if you put them into conflict, you can figure there's going to be some, right?
well,
They're not
I know
in play
lawyers
right now.
talk a lot,
Right.
and I don't know if I would, based upon if they're meeting a regulation. Again, I just don't,
One way I look at
Almost
this
all the
is-
land in the A zone is already developed. There is very little free land undeveloped.
Mhm.
By not changing the regulation, we're not gonna change the situation in those neighborhoods.
we're not going to, because,
The only thing you're gonna change is a couple of use obligations. That's it.
which can be, which we could address any concerns with a special use application, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
I mean, is that-
So, let
The
page.
situation with the village residential and the A1 and A separation.
You're talking
Est-
A1 and village.
Establishing the village residential
Yep,
will actually reduce the number of cases that come in front of our group. It's gonna make the lands, the properties more conforming,
okay.
okay? So, there are already non-conforming properties in that area. They'll be able to do things with less setback and do more things with their property within that small area. With the A and A1, if we take away the A residential, that more exclusive area,
Why is that
nicer
exclusive?
prop. If we take that away, we're
Yeah.
actually changing the character of those neighborhoods by allowing so many different kinds of uses within those neighborhoods. People have bought those properties
Yeah,
with the idea that they won't have commercial properties near them, or even the nonprofit type schools and,
Or any of
nonprofit
the
institutions
any of the uses
in
that
that
are listed
neighborhood.
as not being allowed, never, not
Okay.
picking any particular uses.
And so we're actually taking away something from the neighboring properties, the adjacent properties, by creating a situation where they might have something that, not necessarily commercial, but like I said, those sort of public institutions, busy activity
Yep.
in their A residential neighborhoods.
Could we not address that with special use permits, just like we do in zone A1 right now? Can you confirm?
So,
You can-
so
you
there's
can
a
always
case where
address
we're
concern-
adding
you can always
to the
address
number
something with
of
special use permits.
permits
So,
and the
If
calls
you-
this board has to make.
If you don't put it in here, the difference, and 5 years from now, you all resign and there's a whole new commission, they can, approve all those special use permits in that area. So you're not addressing it unless you prohibit it.
Okay, so
Right.
right now, if I look at zone A, somebody can come before the board with a special use permit and we could approve it with any of these listed here.
No.
No,
No.
only the ones that are allowed in A1.
Says no, these are.
Well, yeah, that's what
A1.
why wouldn't it, I guess why are,
So you want more things to be discretionary from
Because they
the
were-
zoning
no, I want everything to
board?
be fair and equal,
It was
no matter
designed,
where
it
you
was
live.
designed as, they were designed originally as exclusive zones,
Yes.
where people would be more likely to build larger pieces of property.
And by
Well, there were a lot
higher-
of exclusive things
you know,
back
there-
in
there's-
'60s.
there's higher land
Well, they're
values.
still, they're
People-
still being sold and they're still being built on, Lucas.
People
The
choose.
last development in the A zone on Hall Hill Road was done in the 90s. Okay, and the 2000s. And some of the lots are still being sold for that purpose today.
What, to ensure that none of the.
No, not to ensure anything. To people who prefer to be in that kind of a neighborhood,
Okay.
when they're gonna pay a premium for not only the property, but for the buildings that
So
they're
you're
gonna
telling
build.
me, I live on Main Street, if a house with the exact same square footage, same property size, was in A, it's worth more money? And if so, how much money?
We're not getting
But
into
we're not
house
getting- we're
value.
not
You know
involved
what?
with all
You
that.
Using
per-
Carl just said.
I think it's
You're making
personal
a
value.
statement.
I think it's personal value. You choose to live in that neighborhood. You choose that. I mean, Franklin Woods is that, there's, I think Hall Hill Estates, yes, I'm thinking of, Mountain View, right? Mountain View.
Parker Road.
Well,
Parker
everything
Road. I mean,
that's
there's some,
yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yellow.
so there's-
1, 2, 3, 4,
But if
5,
you look
6,
at 'em,
7, 8.
most of them are
Different
already
districts of
developed.
houses, yep. And if you go,
A of zone A.
if you go through them, you can readily see the difference in these districts.
And as we go through this process, I think we're gonna hear quite a bit from our neighbors, neighborhood folks.
And you're gonna hear
On
from people
both
who live in
sides.
those districts and people who don't
gonna-
live in those districts.
At our next meeting, we're gonna have an information.
And I'd love to hear that input, because I think that will flavor our decision
Okay.
as we go
Yeah.
down
I go back
this
to my
road.
original question. Zone A, would we be able to address, if everything in this column said yes, could we address those with a special use permit?
Of course we could.
I guess it looks at,
Well,
and if, you know what, if we wanna change everything to A, but it should be one or the other. I guess you're saying something's exclusive.
No,
and
no,
that-
no.
No, we're not saying
We're not
it's-
saying
oh,
anything
oh.
is
Different,
exclusive.
it's different.
I said it.
There's a distinction between an A
Okay.
and an A1. There's a distinction, every town has distinctions between their zoning. We're not unique at
Well,
all.
and if you
well,
don't,
that's
but
not
if you don't
bad, being
prohibit it,
unique.
yeah, but if you don't prohibit it, like I said, you're relying on, so your mindset, being a commission member, when you vote on a special use permit,
Mhm.
you vote one way or another.
Yeah,
Again, down the road, there could be other commission members that might be more lenient. Oh, I don't see anyone here, objecting, so let's approve this special use permit. Because that kind of happens sometimes, this commission
No,
doesn't
it's
do that.
happened here too.
But, I've witnessed other commissions have some people, the boards that do that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Where, can we allow it and let us be at our discretion, but
just like
not-
zone A1.
Right, but it's,
We can't, so we couldn't have everything be A1 or industrial or village. Again, I think like the first draft that he mentioned, Glenn, I'm sorry.
He did.
That the way that was provided, why can't we stick with that? Would that not allow more, I guess, opportunities for existing residential,
Glenn.
owners?
We're working on a set of regulations. I think our next major milestone is a public informational meeting.
Mhm.
Let's ask the public
Yeah,
what their thoughts are.
Yeah,
But not
And
tonight.
the commission
Yeah,
can
not
take that
tonight,
input.
yeah.
We
So-
can debate
See,
this between the commission
we-
for quite
Okay.
some time, but I think.
Well, I'm just trying to get clarification, because again, I don't wanna make an assumption that's incorrect. And if we can have that public informational meeting, and again, a lot of people support making it one, or a lot of people do not support making it one, either way, we can then make changes. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think right now the default set of regulations, which is the draft I put before you dated April 2019,
Yep.
has the A and the A1 in it.
Which is the way it
That's-
was
that's-
in
And
1960.
no,
Unless
no,
the commission
it
tells
has
me differently,
A
that's what we're
with
going to
changes.
public informational meeting.
What changes were in A and A?
They're all outlined in the regulations.
Well, I've looked, the biggest, well, the
No,
square footage.
they're not on
No,
that
they're
piece
on-
of
they're
paper.
on here.
That was
Yeah.
as
Yep.
they were.
that was,
Yeah, in 3-1.
That was as they were.
yeah, they're highlighted, they're easy to
Yep.
see.
Oh, I know.
But, you talk about the first draft. The first draft was just not long ago. I mean, we've been talking monthly.
fall.
When?
Last
No,
fall.
but we've been talking,
okay.
Our first meeting was the
yeah,
18th
I
of
mean,
October. I
we didn't
believe.
get a draft until I don't know when.
No, we started meeting with Glenn last.
Right, but we didn't get a
It
draft.
was in my-
Until-
in-
But our
February
first
research
meeting with the
phase,
first draft was April 18th, or it
Yeah.
was October 18th.
Yes,
And all those meetings are video,
yeah.
every one.
And at that time, were we not considering putting everything into not everything, but A1?
We
At
talked
that
about
time,
it,
we
it was
talked about
about.
a first draft,
Yep.
and that was a question on the part of Glenn to us.
Okay,
And we said, for the purposes of moving forward, yes,
yeah, okay,
okay?
yep,
Upon
But then-
further discussion, when we got into it,
yep.
we decided it was maybe not a prudent decision.
And that discussion, obviously, I
Well,
You weren't here.
that
Well, I
was
was here
this,
on-
then this came out. Then
Okay,
we
cool.
said, what's
I
the,
was at the
then
meeting
we
with
said,
that.
well, then we said, what's the difference?
Yep. And
So-
any meeting I missed, I sat through an exciting, videotape of it.
Every discussion we had is part of those videos.
Yeah.
There were no
Yeah.
discussions
Oh, I know,
not part of the
absolutely, I'm
video.
not saying they're not, but I
Yeah.
guess I'm trying to,
So,
so it seemed like we were going this way, then,
well, no.
No, because if
No.
you watch the video,
No.
you'd see
We
where
weren't.
we weren't going that way.
It's gonna be up
Well,
for discussion until
okay.
we go, so anyways, at this point, I think we should just move on, because we're gonna have we're gonna have it open to the public, our next meeting, the public will be able to speak on any issue in the zoning regulations.
Mhm.
Correct, and I actually have correspondence that I'll, share.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's been available in my office, you can read, because we've received many
I'm sure we have.
letters in favor of application,
Mhm.
change this, all 3 days, and so on. So, I made copies of everything, so you guys can read through it, it'll be available for the public to come look at in the
Yeah.
land use office, so, as part of this whole process, so.
because I know the March
I mean,
meeting.
it's not
that I
official,
attended.
it's not official, it's not a public hearing, it's just feedback that the community wants to provide right now.
Yeah.
Have those been submitted on the record, or?
No,
Okay.
we are not having a public hearing.
I know, I'm talking.
So-
We don't have
They've been-
anything to
they've been
consider
provided-
those for.
Yeah, we've had letters
Yeah.
in March that were given to the first selectman and zoning enforcement.
Yeah, they keep
So I
coming
made
in,
copies
there's a
of-
steady
So
stream.
I've made copies of them, I'm gonna hand them out to you so that you can, review them, and if anyone, so when you're saying public record, I'm stating that if anyone would like to come look at the letters, they are on file in the land use office, but
Okay.
it's not as any kind of a legal, it's not a public hearing, so it's not.
Well, I know,
legal.
not this meeting, but
Correct.
the March meeting I attended, I know that there were,
Nobody
letters
got
that people
anything, so
were
I
holding.
didn't give it to anybody, right, I have the packets here, no commission member has received any letters. Yeah, unless Jill
I
has them.
have
Oh, you
received,
have.
Jill has
personally,
them.
people have sent them to me.
Right.
So,
So-
can we obtain those as members, or?
I'm going
Yeah, they're
to-
right
Oh,
there in
okay,
front of
sorry.
you.
Okay, yeah,
They're right
okay.
here.
Yep,
Yeah.
no, okay.
So I'll give you a packet, each of you a packet, I made 5
Mhm.
copies, five packets of all the correspondence that's come one way or another to the first selectman's office or to me. You guys can read it and, mull over it in your own thoughts, and then we'll hear from the public at the, hopefully we'll schedule that tonight. Try and pick a date that will be good for a public informational meeting, and then they'll be able to speak officially on the record, to you about their
Right.
concerns.
Okay.
So you're gonna get more before this is not carved in stone
Yeah.
yet, but.
This is just a meeting to set the date for the informational meeting with the
Meeting
public
or
and speak.
meetings.
And to see if it looks right, maybe.
Right, and to see if it looks right, right. I mean, there still can be changes along the way. It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
that's where we are.
Till the close of the public hearing.
Yeah,
Right, right,
this is still a work in process.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
There
So,
was another question or comment. Was it David? There was another section you wanted to talk about?
Was me in the village district areas, and I know that in the past, there's been a lot of sentiment on the part of the town that they really don't wanna see any more car sales places, and they don't wanna see any more gasoline stations in those districts, and I think we should make it part of it.
So on page 53 of
And
the
then by that,
draft-
I mean no new, because we can't do anything about the ones that are already approved, but we can do something about ones that may come up in the future.
So I think if you notice on page 53.
And it may be in there, Glenn, I just didn't get into all the
I
details.
think I may have an answer to 50% of your.
On 53,
Page 53, you'll notice that item number 7 says gasoline sales approved or in existence as of, and it's got an effective.
yeah, and I wasn't sure,
So gas sales is up.
right,
You'll notice number 3 above has motor vehicle sales service, and it does not have that clause.
right.
So if that is the commission's desire or intention to have a similar approach, then we need to.
From my position, it's more that it was the sentiment of the public when we did the large survey to ask them what they wanted to see or not wanted to see going forward in our town.
Is it the consensus of the commission, you'd like me to include that language as we head for the next, public informational meeting, to put that in?
Similar to what you put in for gasoline
Yep.
sales, I would say yes, but I can't speak for everybody.
Paige, what about the industrial area?
Well,
Well-
that's true, but I was talking about the village business area.
I know you were, but the
We just
industrial
approved one, we
area,
just
you've
approved
got
one for the industrial area
site plan
last
approval
meeting.
only.
We just approved one for the industrial
Yeah.
area last meeting.
Right,
I think
but for industrial, you could change
Paige
it,
brings up a
special
good- a
use
good-
permit.
Yeah.
That's a good
And that
thought.
would make it slightly,
So-
more under discussion here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I may, what I might suggest to address Paige's comment is we split 3 into 2 lines,
Yep,
one of which is motor vehicle sales and service, which is site plan approval in the industrial district,
yep,
and special use permit in a business district, but in a village business district,
Not
it has to
allowed.
be in a.
not allowed,
Not allowed.
or
It
existing,
has to be in a.
it could be grandfathered, you
Correct.
could sell the
It could be
business.
An
grandfathered.
existing, you
And
could
You could
sell
sell
an
the business,
existing-
but you can't create another one.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that the consensus of the commission to make that change?
I say yes.
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
And the effective date on number 7, the gasoline sales?
Is
what
to be
was-
determined by us.
When
If
the,
we
when
were to
the,
That's
adopt
why it's blank.
regulations in 2024, it would be 2024. If we adopt them in 2022, it's 2022.
Okay.
Hopefully.
2019.
Right.
I don't think it's possible.
Glenn, I have another thing on, section 2, page 3, 9. Agricultural,
Page 9,
page 9.
Okay.
Also, water, harvesting water is included in farming now?
it is, or,
It
It
is,
is.
yes.
or
But
it's not on this list?
listed, yeah.
It should be listed on this list.
Right.
Not listed?
No, but it should be.
Water harvest.
When you say water harvest, you're talking rain collection.
Taking water
No,
from a
coming
well.
out,
Well, there's
It
different
can-
ones, Paul.
I
There's
understand,
rain
but that's
Comes out of
specifically what Dan's
springs,
talking about.
springs.
Springs.
Okay.
it's not,
wells.
it's any kind of water harvesting. It can be, wells, actually, springs in the ground, that's what,
But
like
like
Poland
anything, it could
Springs,
be rain.
Poland Springs, they get the water
Yeah,
up
It could
in
be
the
rain,
well.
but we're more specifically talking about people who harvest it for filling swimming pools or for drinking water for people.
Spelling.
So the only thing I did here is I think, as you'll notice from the language up top here, I took state statute CGS 1-1Q, which has the definition of agriculture, and copied that over.
Right.
So I don't believe that that's in there, so I'm happy to add that in, but I feel obligated to not remove the definition as defined in or as modified from.
Okay,
Okay.
well, it could be as modified from,
Yes,
couldn't it?
as modified, yeah.
Yeah, it's something new, actually, relatively new, compared to all the rest of the things.
Have you seen that somewhere? As a
Yeah, on my
yes.
road,
Yeah,
yeah,
right
Woods
here.
Road.
No, 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 no.
Oh, it is.
As a, no, I mean, as a state regulation.
That's fine, yeah, it is. They had to go through the Connecticut Farm Bill to get it.
Was that when Dave had to go through that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cadillac, right?
Right. I knew who it was specifically about. I
Yeah.
remember the whole controversy over
Yeah,
it.
they had a fun with that.
And I
So-
thought it was ridiculous to start with to
I just
prevent it.
wanted to point out to the commission one consideration here. If you were to look at page 30 of the regulations, we identify farm as a use permitted in a residential district, no permit required. So by adding water harvesting into the definition of farm and agriculture now makes it a non-regulated use in a residential district. So I wanna make sure that you're aware of that possible implication. And so what you might wanna do is add water harvesting as a line now
For the
in
special use
the
permit.
table and make that a special use permit. Yes, it's permitted, but
Yeah,
how much water? Are we talking
Well,
Dave harvests quite a
10,000
bit of water.
gallons a day?
yeah,
or
the
a million
the
gallons?
state limits them on it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Do we feel comfortable with the state standards? Do we think we should have our own review?
I don't trust the state for anything. Anything.
I got a
Okay.
couple things I trust about it.
Well, financially, they're not great.
But my suggestion for your consideration
We have
would be we
nothing to
add a
do with
line
that.
in for water harvesting, special use permit, or water harvesting above a certain gallon amount. I'll do
Will
some
you
research on this.
define water harvesting? And the
Can you
reason-
give us some suggestions as to what you think makes sense?
Yeah, I think, so let me start off with a water harvesting line. It'll show up
Mhm.
as red, highlighted.
Mhm.
You guys can look at the language and say thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah. But I agree with Dan, it belongs in there because we do have that use in town already.
Yeah, they had quite the
And there was
to-do
quite a
about it
brouhaha over it.
years ago. The
What?
guy wanted to harvest water, and they said
Harvesting
it wasn't
water.
farming.
I guess, I
It went
was,
through the state,
Yeah.
all the moves with it,
Yeah.
you know?
I was reading, the only reason I bring it up, the Wall Street Journal had a situation where, some people were harvesting rain off their roof
Mhm.
and using it for watering gardens. And I
Mhm.
wanna make sure that, as a board, that we don't
We're not
start
preventing.
telling
No,
people,
we're not,
hey,
no, we're not.
you can only, harvest 500 gallons of what, because other towns are doing that.
Yeah.
Rain barrels.
Well,
They
they're
can
larger
make-
than rain
Well,
barrels,
I'm just
but-
saying, they can use, yeah.
Some people
that's-
build cisterns to
Yeah.
Yeah.
store the water.
This is for,
So
no.
we're strict, okay, so
This
we're
is
not
drinking
talking-
water
This is-
and swimming pools,
Drink-
stuff
okay.
like
Pulling
that.
water out to sell. And
Okay,
put-
oh,
put
I
a
think
truck
like in
it.
Bloomfield.
Pot-
Like
potable
what
water.
Like
happened?
right here in Summers.
It happened in Summers, not in Bloomfield, it happened here.
Well, Bloomfield, it did happen also.
All right,
Yeah.
let me do some research on this. I think it's a good point.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get it
May
worded.
need a definition for it, so let me see
Yeah.
what the Department of Ag has or other places. We'll see what
Okay.
we can find. Yeah, thank you.
But you'll specifically define that.
I'll see what the state has
He'll give us
already.
some, he'll give us some
Thank
options.
you. Yeah, there,
Because if we can refer to their definition, if that works for us, so again, let me
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me
Okay,
get
thank you.
get into this and see what I find.
Any other concerns? Paige, you come up with anything you wanted to question or expand on?
You know, expanding on, you were talking about how the size of houses, there's court law that says we may not be able to regulate that.
Right?
There were a few other things that you addressed in the regulations too, just to fit standards. We took away some sign regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were there other things that,
Yeah, so I think I
Particularly-
prepared, is that posted on the website, the summary major changes?
No, but we
well,
have it.
they're right here.
It can
It's in
be,
this book.
it
Oh, I
can
think
be
we should.
posted.
If it's already
Yeah.
at the commission and
Yeah.
it's got a draft watermark, can I
Yeah,
pull that up,
yeah.
Joe?
Yeah,
You want-
well, I'm definitely,
So,
open to.
for the commission and other benefit, I've created what's called a summary of major changes, and we're just trying to keep track of the big picture things so that
Yep.
So
people
these-
could get familiar and know where to look in the reg.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we'll take the draft off of that, remind you tomorrow if you will.
The draft off of,
This document here, and we should post that on the website as
Oh, okay, yeah.
informational for people,
Yep.
so that.
Okay.
Yep,
So it's like 4 pages versus,
yeah,
you know,
synopsis.
100 and whatever
They may-
pages.
People may look through it and say, oh, I only need to be looking at this section,
Right,
and.
good call,
But it not only talks about the changes, but what the differences are.
yeah.
So it has, it does not go into exquisite detail on the changes, but it lets you know what the, sense of the change is. so
Right.
People can look at it and come to their own.
And it would need to be corrected term-wise to tie into what we're talking about now, which is not designating the zones as what they're listed to.
That's a good point, I'll update it so that we get that together. I think the other thing the page just mentioned is that the state Supreme Court and the US Supreme Court has issued recent decisions on sign regulations and, free speech, First Amendment content. So your ability to regulate signs is pretty much dictated by time, place, and manner. But if somebody wants to put other verbiage on there, it's their free speech right.
Right.
It's an area that, if you're going to regulate content, my duty is to advise you need to be very careful in doing so, because if appealed, you
Oh,
may
we're
have
not.
to.
I had one more little thing.
Sure.
When we first started out, talking about it, we were trying to extend on like, wasn't it Route 83 and a little further, and, for,
One thing here too.
for business and stuff like that?
So,
Yep,
So there was this one thing that you put in here about on, page 39. It's about bed and breakfast.
Mhm.
on collector arterial roads such as are classified in the Plan of Conservation and Development. So
Yeah, so that would take
that would be 83 and 190.
yeah, that's what we're trying to build a little business on, right?
Yep.
And I was wondering why you put, because we do have one already,
It's in
Victoria's
Somersville.
Secret is on,
There's more than one.
190, and that's a bed and breakfast.
So that would be an arterial road.
Yeah, 190, yes.
Yeah,
So that would be fine, it's okay.
yeah,
But if somebody, for example, on a cul-de-sac,
Right.
hang on a second here, that,
yeah.
and there's a famous court case from New Milford where somebody set up a church in a residential cul-de-sac, and every Sunday, the cul-de-sac was full of cars.
Oh, I see. I thought you were meaning all just the back roads. It's
No.
190 and, 83 are acceptable.
In the
Yeah,
Plan of
okay.
But
Conservation
collector
Development is a
roads,
map that
Maple
shows
Street
the-
actually is a
Maple.
collector
These
road.
are the more major
And that's where the
roads.
other one is that's approved.
Okay,
You
good.
could only put a bed and breakfast, you could only apply to put a bed and breakfast on a more major road. And again, the commission would look at the conditions and the situation and say that doesn't work, or, that could work.
Because it would save some of the big older homes, and
Correct.
it
So I
works,
think
too.
we also added in a provision in the regulations, as you may recall, for what we called adaptive reuse, which is if you
Right.
have an older
Mhm,
house,
mhm.
which, could be adapted, maybe for an office or a dentist office, and put the parking where you couldn't see it or whatever, and it's located near to the village centers, it could be a gentle business without being a business zone and opening up a Pandora's box of other issues.
Right.
So that opportunity is also in this
Would
set
that
of
be through
regulations.
special use permit then?
We call it adaptive reuse.
Adaptive.
Section 3.9, page 50.
I do.
This is limited only Route 190 and 83.
You're looking
Mhm.
in the book.
On that, page,
This is what?
52, it says 183 on page 50.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
one,
Route 83, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's just for your, just for your information.
Thank you.
Is this different?
Hands on other towns. There's Route 183 somewhere.
Where are we?
Page 50.
Adaptive reuse. Oh, yeah, it does say,
I just put it in
did you
there.
correct that?
Yeah, right
Okay,
here.
because that was something I noticed before.
Yeah.
It's not 183.
Oh,
It's 83, not 183.
we're gonna change that too, no.
Yeah, do you have the
We'll
state
get the
change
sign
that?
changed.
Sure.
We don't want to change this. Have the state change that?
So we're saying in here is that only along those routes, right?
Only along those routes could you apply for this. The standards are fairly strict. It has to be, as it's pointed out on page 50, historical architectural significance to Summers, frontage on a state highway, nature and conduct of such use and proposed improvement shall enhance and preserve the exterior integrity and appearance of the structure. So if somebody was proposing to build, you have to preserve the structure and adapt it to a new use in a way that doesn't
Fits.
make it look like it's a commercial use.
Right.
So there are a number of examples around the state where people have done very elegant jobs with this, and it could be a way for us to improve our tax base but maintain the character which is so important. So again, by special use permit, the commission gets, we beefed up the special use criteria in the regulations to give the commission a good
But
set of
along
standards.
190 and 83, those two.
Yeah.
No, bed and breakfast was a different section.
Yeah, it's a different
Bed and breakfast
section,
was back
and it
on-
calls collector
There
roads
is bed and
too.
breakfast.
Bed and breakfast was back
Collector
on.
roads are a little less
Page
volume than
39.
an arterial
And that
road.
says collector or arterial. The bed and breakfast is different than adaptive reuse. I mean,
The other one
could have an
comes,
adaptive reuse, so,
I guess, wouldn't a bed and breakfast be a adaptive reuse if it's in a residential?
it could be, but we
bed and breakfast
specifically
is a fairly
allowed for
specific
bed and
type of
breakfast.
use.
Yeah.
There's not a great deal of wiggle room. I think we all understand what a bed and breakfast is and how it functions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the commission can evaluate that as part of the how many rooms, how many people, what would you be doing? Adaptive reuse could open up a doctor's office or attorney's office.
Dentist or whatever,
Or something else.
architectural.
Exactly, so.
But not a
Is
retail
it-
store.
But it can't be retail,
I believe there's a specific prohibition in here
for like antique shop or something like that.
It could be that.
Could it be an antique
I
shop?
don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, something like an antique.
You have to find a chart for that.
does not have a specific prohibition on retail at this time.
Right.
It says, not result in a substantial departure from residential use or appearance, or that generates significantly higher traffic levels on a regular basis, or the character of
You're not
the
gonna
area.
adaptively reuse it and make it a McDonald's, for example.
A restaurant?
Okay.
A restaurant? Could you have
Yeah.
an adaptive reuse as a restaurant?
Sure,
I think you could.
And
Could
maybe,
be, yes.
but one that
When the
doesn't
commission finds
significantly
that-
look different from a residential.
Well,
because they could put the parking behind, they, you know,
Exactly.
there's architects and engineers involved that easily address these.
So, I mean, zoning is both a combination of art and science.
Yes.
So the science would be, we either allow it or we don't. The art of it is, you can imagine a situation, for example, as Dan pointed out, where it's adjacent to the business zone on Route 83, or it's 2 buildings down. And
Right.
the issue is it could work there, preserve a historic house, the parking would be behind, the restaurant could be a wonderful addition to Summers, and the commission could look at those circumstances and say, you know what, sure. There might be another situation which is a mile down the road, which is vastly different, and it doesn't feel right. And the commission says, you know what, no, we're not comfortable in that situation. So there's times that zoning is clear cut, and there's times it's discretionary. The special use permit is intended to give the commission the tools to evaluate whether or not it could be compatible in this situation. Other states call these types of situations conditional uses. These are uses that might be permitted, provided they can demonstrate they meet the conditions which are laid out in the regulations. We don't call them conditional uses in Connecticut, we call them special permit, but it's the same approach. The applicant has to demonstrate that they comply with the conditions spelled out in the regulations to your satisfaction, and at that time, you could permit it. If they're not able to meet that burden, you can say no, and the law protects you.
Anything else?
Did,
We never really talked about the map or the lines. I had a question on what people thought about the zone lines being drawn to the property lines of the properties instead of being a certain distance setback from the center line of road like is present on the existing zone.
So it follows.
You had a what?
so it follow the property line versus the,
Yes, well, some people have property.
But there's some you can-
Oh, well, what makes sense, that seems a little more clear.
It makes sense to unify the zones.
What I could do is send out a map to everyone showing the existing,
Conflicts?
yeah, like this map I did right here, this is a field road industrial area.
Yeah,
The honeycomb area shows the existing.
where,
Purple area goes to the property line, except for the Fartown Fair.
do you wanna bring it over here and give us a closer example?
So,
I think I know where you're at, but I'm not positive.
This is Field Road,
Yep.
Town Garage right here,
okay.
Levies is here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So right now,
that's all
it's
industrial
400
and
feet
everything
from the
outside
center
of
line
that.
of road.
And everything
Basically, it's a
outside of
zoning,
that is a
right.
So
different
this
use.
isn't, is that what you're
Right,
saying?
right.
So you would extend
Half of
it-
Levies is
half a levy, but
an
it,
industrial.
is used as.
So this is more following the property line.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Same thing in, this is Somersville area,
Yeah,
Mhm.
same thing.
yeah, it certainly makes more sense
So I can
to follow
send
the
these maps
property
out
line
to
as
everybody,
opposed to
shows
cutting it in
you,
half.
the existing is the honeycomb.
Yeah,
What we're trying to expand it to is a different color. Here's center of
okay.
Summers.
So
There's the
we're okay with the
existing,
commission.
1,000 feet here.
At one time, we had created an existing zoning map,
Yep.
possible zoning map, and then a map, which is the middle one in the series, which shows the changes, if you will.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is, we're using the town's GIS consultant here, so if it's okay with you guys, I think it makes sense for us to create the 3-map set, and I'll give that to Jen to post on the website
Yep.
as well. Existing, proposed, and then the intermediate map is colored to show where the changes occur. And as Jeff points out, there's some
I didn't read
locations
that
like industrial
confusing
district,
spell,
where you, move the zone onto the property.
There's one of these maps, Glenn, that you gave us. I don't know if I have it with me or
I
not.
have that, we have that one.
Yeah, wait, some sort of decide if you want to.
Oh, wait, I have another map.
To the property lines or leave it where it is in certain cases.
No, there's one that's,
I have 3 maps
there's,
here.
yeah, it's not that one, the next one.
How would you deal with the,
They were all together.
there are
That
a few
one.
very
Okay, this
large
map, okay.
properties that haven't yet been
This one's
subdivided
confusing.
yet?
And this is the one that
I can see
shows,
where, you know, it's part yellow, part white. How would you deal with those?
Well,
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear the question.
Can you,
I think the regulation is you go with the more stricter
right,
zone as far as the setbacks and uses and all of that. So it's just something that needs to be clarified at the time you want to do something. If your whole property is zoned industrial, okay, I know I can do industrial. It's half residential, half industrial, you know, I got a small building here and some residential right next to it here, industrial. So it's a matter of, like I said, if you want to draw it to the property line, or whatever reason why they held 400 feet back from the center line back in 1987, I think it was.
I don't know when it was done.
People have to go for a zone change, over there where, next to Cedar Knob and the Mountain Tree Service property. Chet Ladd owns a strip of land between Mountain Tree Service and Cedar Knob. But in that area, it's past the 400-foot setback, so he had to get a zone change in there to do anything with that Mountain Tree Service.
mhm,
So this would just take care of things like that. If you wanna
Mhm.
change it, like Glenn was
Yeah.
saying, just like the zones. you
It's
just
much
waive
more
it.
logical to change it the way you're proposing because
Take a
it
little
makes
bit
it,
of confusing away out of it.
it makes
Yeah.
it easier to understand what's what.
Property is only one thing, you know.
But I think as Paige points out, I think the issue here is let's get clear maps that clearly identify zoning today, zoning which was being considered for the future, and the color code exactly what the changes are. This is going from this to this.
Yeah, that does make
People
sense.
can say whether or not their property or property that's near to them is being affected. So I'll make that happen.
And if it's a single owner
No.
who's got 2 different
Should we say
zones,
that?
this would be the time for them to
did?
say, I want my property to be
Yeah.
one zone or the
I think
other.
that opinion should be expressed. There are times that we may look at it and people say, I don't wanna be in an industrial zone, I'd like to be in a residential district, but everybody around them's industrial, so the commission may not in that situation respect the desires of the property owner.
And we're not creating new industrial areas. He's talking about industrial areas that have existed for years.
Correct,
Mhm.
and we're extending them out, but again, I think it makes sense to be very clear as to where these changes are, so the
Absolutely.
commission is
Yeah.
aware of them, and the community is also.
Yeah, and if it doesn't go over, then you can just leave it the way you are.
Yep.
So we're not taking away property.
You'll see
Right.
you'll see when I send the maps out.
Okay.
Comparison.
So at the point in time, we should talk about meetings.
yes, so, I guess we gotta schedule,
So
How
the
m-
challenge I have at the moment is that our normal date in May
yeah,
Would be the third Monday.
a family wedding that weekend, I will be back.
Okay.
So, and I also have some vacation time scheduled, so there's a challenge here, that the next available times for me are between now and May 16th, which is very quick turnaround in terms of the maps and stuff.
I won't be here for those.
Or now we're pushing it out till, probably our meeting in June or sometime after June 12th.
And I
Which is
won't
a
be here
long way
after
away.
June twelfth.
Well, I'm saying our normal meeting in June would be, you know, off the top of your head.
The normal zoning meeting
June third,
Our
Um,
normal
the first.
regulation workshop meeting.
It's like the
would
20th,
be the
right?
second Monday.
The-
Yeah, so it would have been May 20th, but
Yeah, right.
we're looking ahead to June at this
Yeah.
point.
June third is the first Monday, June
No, it
tenth
wouldn't
is
be
the
the
second.
third, so it'd be June 17th.
Does it have to be a Monday?
No.
No.
No, it can be
I'm
any day of
saying,
the
yeah,
week.
'cause there's
Your
a lot of
normal
other
meeting
days of the
night.
week.
So does May twenty-third
There are.
or May 30th work for?
Well, yeah,
I looked at my
June
calendar
twelfth
already.
through the 25th, I'm out of state.
I'm saying just for a public information meeting.
Oh, okay.
To get that one.
This isn't to decide anything.
No.
This is to take input from the public.
Yeah, so the
May
23rd,
May 30th.
I mean,
those
it's,
are
and
Thursdays.
we'd like everybody to be there, we'd like the whole
Right.
commission to be
Those
there.
are
Yeah.
Thursday evenings, the last two Thursdays in May.
Yeah, the 23rd or third, that
The
gives
what?
1, 2, 3.
What?
I'm gone from Memorial Day through the first 2 weeks.
Oh, you have conflict with the 30th,
The 23rd.
but not the 23rd?
The 30th is Memorial Day.
Oh.
Oh, you're doing a conflict with that as well?
22nd.
Right, what about 22nd?
Sorry.
Of,
No?
Oh, you know what, I could probably move that.
to what? What day? I don't know.
May
which-
22.
22, you said?
May 22nd?
That's a
22nd?
Wednesday
that's a
night, 3
Wednesday.
weeks from today, or 3 weeks.
Three,
Well,
yeah, 3 weeks
3
and
weeks
2
from
days.
this Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Does that work for,
Pretty
May,
sure
Yeah, I'll be
I
back
can
on
make
the
that happen.
15th.
May 29th?
But
22nd.
given the time to
Should
the
we?
22nd.
May
Should work.
22.
Should work,
We
I
don't
think.
have to do
I-
a legal
I-
notice because it's not.
Oh.
No, I
Right.
think we would
Public,
like to
yeah,
do
it's a
public.
public information
It's-
meeting.
So I think here would be my pledge to you, is that by the end of this week, I will have the revised regulations updated to reflect the changes that we have discussed here tonight.
Okay,
If you would also keep this version posted on the town website.
It
And what
is.
I do on each successive version is accept the changes in the prior version and show what's only changed from this draft to the next.
right.
Mhm.
So if people look at it, you have to be able to see the history and go back and
Right.
see when did this change and why.
Okay.
So I will have that done by the end of the week. I will have the revised, summary of major changes also ready. I will have some
Yep.
PR materials for posters and email notices, so that we can start to get the word out for this. I'll probably be able to do this sooner, but I need to talk to our GIS guys to make sure that they can get this done with other things that they may have going. But
Okay,
Jeff may have more big with them than I do, so I'm pretty sure we can make this happen.
yes.
And what time would May 22nd?
So is that?
6:30.
6:30.
6:30?
Yeah.
I am
Well,
99%
do it
convinced I
anytime.
can remove that conflict.
You can.
Confirming.
I will make that conflict disappear.
Okay.
So, would you check room availability, are we talking
You
here?
gotta be here.
Yeah, I'd have to be here.
But in
Look
this
at the
room,
calendar
is there
right
no-
now,
This is
I
on
don't see
Wednesday.
anything on there.
A Wednesday.
We'll throw 'em.
We can go
We'll
next
take
door.
precedent unless it's election or,
Yeah, I don't think
when
there's
is,
a-
well, I don't know, when's the referendum? Okay, 'cause that would take this room. And that one we can't preempt.
That'll be a long, this is a long night.
Yeah.
What?
The
Nicely listening.
Hmm?
Nicely listening.
Would our start time be 7 o'clock?
6:30?
6:30?
6:30, thank you.
6:30?
No, it's easier for everybody if we stay consistent with our
Yeah.
meetings, I think, instead of picking a different time for different meetings.
So we need to make a motion.
Make a motion to set the public informational meeting for the 22nd of May at 6:30 PM here in this part of Town Hall.
Second.
At 6:30. Carl made a motion to set the public
Informational
informational
meeting.
meeting for May 22nd.
The
Six.
first, if more than one is necessary.
I'll second that.
Oh, Lucas
Ca-
seconded
Lucas
it.
seconded it.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So, that's our next step. So you folks can all come back next month and
Before we adjourn, do you wanna talk about what expectations are for the public information hearing?
What do you
Like,
mean?
will we be discussing things as well? Will we hear from Glenn? Will there be some presentations,
you want-
or will we go
Presentation
right
from
into-
Glenn, input from the public.
I think what would be beneficial for the commission and for the community, for the people who show up, is to have a short presentation, if you will, which
Yep.
gives an overview, a summary of what we're trying to accomplish with the regulations, how the regulations are laid out, the basic approach we've taken in the different sections of the regulations. We'd have a short handout, it might simply be the summary of major changes. If people actually wanted to go online beforehand and print the regulations out, they could, but I don't think we'd have printed copies here for everybody. And then at that point in time, to open it up for public comment so that we can catalog, in addition to the correspondence that's come in so far, what people are commenting about, what their issues or concerns might be, so that at a follow-up working session, probably not that evening, I could organize all the thoughts together into a cogent summary, if you will, and that the commission could review that and make this, and give me advice and guidance as to how you'd like
Because
those
this
changes
isn't
made.
written in stone. If we get a lot of input at a direction that we think we're going in the right way and the public does
That's
not
where we're
support
headed.
that, we can make a change, request it to you, correct?
Yeah, I think the commission is gonna try to do something which is either illegal, which
Please
isn't
stop
legal,
us.
I
Please
should
stop
say.
us.
I will advise you
Yeah.
that that's probably not a prudent thing to do, so there's times that what may be popular isn't legal. But I would give you that advice, et cetera, and to try to coach you in a positive direction to address community issues or concerns and accomplish what the commission wants. My job is to try to help you, be a good zoning commission.
So basically, it's not like a working meeting where they would,
No, we're not gonna, I'm not
Question and
envisioning us
then
having any
hash out.
exchanges
No.
with the public
We're just-
comment. We're just gonna hear to
It's-
receive the public comment.
I mean, we're gonna, not that, it's not a
Maybe
public
the
hearing, but
question-
we're gonna kinda treat it, I mean, I don't know.
It's
We're
gonna
gonna
be
use
like
the
a public
question-
hearing
if
that's
we-
not officially a public hearing.
Right,
Right.
so we're gonna take all the information in, but we're not gonna get into the back and forth with, cause we're taking in their information, it's gonna be
Glenn
recorded.
does a good public information meeting.
Yeah, so,
Very good.
I mean, if we go back and forth all night, I'm sure there'll be,
and also just even amount of
right,
information,
it will
kind of
be,
dig
it will
into
be
information.
a much longer night than
Right,
needed. Just
right.
we just wanna hear the public, so bring all your friends and
I think
neighbors
it's one
and
packet per each.
that's it.
Yeah.
Do you want these handed out?
Sure.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah.
Snail mail.
Mail it?
Actually, this one-
So, should we have this up on the public forum too, now that there's been so much talk about it? It
I
doesn't
mean,
hurt,
that's
this,
clarity, why hide?
no, we're not
Well,
hiding
what-
anything,
Well, I'm saying, but why
but
not
we,
The parts
all
that are
the
notes
information.
that
part-
Jill wrote aren't part of the
Yeah.
document.
my notes, I have my own notes.
Does that
correct.
have a title on it?
Zoning comparison,
It was
So-
something that Jennifer made us.
Yeah, I agree, but I think if we put it on the website under the phraseology of zoning AA1 zoning comparison, existing zoning comparison.
existing is the key word, yes.
Yes.
This is yours,
Not proposed, it's just,
existing, yeah, current,
Yeah. So
yeah,
everybody can see what, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you can put a new title on it.
It's written at the bottom that it's not an official document, it's just funny.
It's our current regulation, that's what, it's our current existing
It's just a
regulation.
summary of some of.
it's a summary
Some,
of
yeah,
parts
some
of
of,
the
so, yeah.
comparison.
It's not.
I'm sure there's-
It's not the whole thing.
I'm sure
That
And you
somebody,
could put a note stating for an inclusive,
It's not.
This is
it's
for
not-
no, but it'd be for,
information.
see zoning,
see Glenn
regulation
Chalter.
3.1,
Because if I miss something, I don't want, you didn't state that this,
Yeah.
Does there have to be any disclosure on that?
I'm gonna put one.
You're
Yeah.
gonna, yeah.
Put whatever you feel is
Yeah,
comfortable.
whatever you're comfortable
Yeah.
with.
I think if you put working document for commission discussion purposes, it's not a
Mhm.
formal representation.
Okay. I think that's it, right? Well, not that's it, really.
Didn't you have two things? You wrote down,
There
a
was
date
that was it.
and.
the date and the
Oh, okay,
map,
okay.
so we did
Yep.
both of those.
Oh, there's lots of stuff in here.
So, yeah, all these letters are gonna be in the land use office, anybody that wants to read them, they can certainly go over and peruse them. I don't think these are gonna be online, are they?
Mm-mm.
No, 'cause these are private, but you can go to the town hall and read them. Okay, so moving right along, I think are we ready to adjourn? Is there anything else that we need to cover?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Paige.
I'll second that.
At, motion was voted at 7:53. All in,
All in favor?
whoop, all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.